For a long time, it gave me nightmares. Having to witness an injustice like that. It was a constant reminder of how unfair this world can be. I could still hear them taunting him. Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. How come they just couldn't give him some cereal?
Who's ready to overanalyze some Saturday morning commercials? There are many different ways to advertise a product, but the end goal is always the same. You want people to buy it. You have to put it in the public eye to make consumers remember it. One of the best ways to do this is with a clever ad campaign, or a memorable mascot. While there have been mascots aimed at adults, sometimes with, interesting results, the majority of mascots appear to be more aimed at the family market, specifically kids. And today, we're going to talk about one of the most sympathetic mascots to ever exist. A silly rabbit who just wants a bowl of cereal. Trix cereal was introduced by General Mills in 1954 as a sweet, fruity variation of their Kix cereal, not to be confused with Berry Berry Kix, which came later. There were 3 colors, red, yellow, and orange, and the shapes were simple puffs. The commercials were rather simple too. I could only find a couple, but they pretty much just had generic animated kid characters not really doing anything of note. A generic rabbit also appeared in the boxes around this time, but if any commercials were recorded with him, I can't find them. In 1959, a new rabbit character was created for General Mills by artist Joe Harris. Although he looked less zany and expressive than we know him to be today, the commercial set up what was to be a lifelong of agony for our furry friend.
I have a problem. I'm a rabbit, and rabbits are supposed to love carrots, but what I love is Trix.
The rabbit explains his love of Trix, but then becomes downtrodden when he remembers that Trix are for kids. A few kids then chow down on the cereal right next to him, showing no sympathy for the hungry bunny.
Trix are for kids.
When I grow up, I'm going to have a whole house full of Trix. Yeah. Don't you just love Trix fruit colors? Yeah. And that fruit flavor. I like them better than anything. What's the matter with him?
I'm sad because Trix are for kids.
Depressing? Very. But clearly it worked. The rabbit was soon appearing on boxes and became the one and only recurring character in the commercials, always pitted against some cruel, unfeeling children. He was originally voiced by Mort Marshall, with Russell Horton taking over in the mid-70s. A few particularly nasty commercials from this period include one where the rabbit goes to sleep, hoping to at least have some Trix in his dreams, only for the dream to turn into a nightmare. Not even in his fantasies can he be happy for long. In another, he volunteers to go to space for NASA, remember this was during the space race, and he asks only for a box of Trix as payment. The brief moment where he realizes he can't eat the Trix with his helmet on is heartbreaking. To add insult to injury, some alien kids snatch the cereal a second later. This commercial was remade in 1993 where the rabbit went to Mars, with the same result. In 1968, a vote was held to determine whether or not the rabbit should be allowed a bowl of Trix. Although I can't find a commercial related to that event, the result was a positive one, and the rabbit finally got to eat some Trix. The campaign was repeated in 1976, 1980, and 1991 with the same outcome: a well-deserved bowl of Trix. Around this time, in the late 60s, early 70s, the rabbit would also occasionally get in a few spoonfuls of Trix in the commercials before having it get snatched away. In one commercial, he even managed to steal an entire box and keep it. Alas, these victories were not for long. The rabbit continued pulling his little stunts to get Trix, starting the now well-known formula where he would disguise himself as something, anything really, to win the kids' favor. His disguises in the 70s included a cowboy, a rock star, and a Fonzie-inspired greaser. The most meta disguise he had was as a director of a Trix commercial. Every commercial would go the same way. The rabbit disguises himself, approaches the kids, and quickly befriends them. Since the ads were all about 30 seconds long, he always cuts right to the chase and asks for a bowl of Trix. The kids cheerfully oblige, and the rabbit gets so swept up in excitement that his disguise falls off. Cue the silly rabbit Trix over kids bit, and the rabbit makes a little quip trying to hide how much his soul has really been crushed. Despite the repeated notion that Trix are for kids, most of the rabbit's disguises are of adult figures, so why would the children even consider parting with their cereal to these grown-up strangers? I swear, sometimes they're just purposely messing with the poor rabbit. Most of these commercials were a mix of live action and animation, and some of the effects are pretty decent quality for a commercial. The trend of the animated rabbit trying to dupe some live action kids continued through the mid-80s. A few notable moments stand out here. One was the addition of the purple grape flavor. 2 commercials were made with everyone excitedly chatting about the new flavor, but going out of their way to keep the rabbit out of the loop. One gag included an adult couple romantically sharing a bowl of Trix, which leads me to wonder why no kids are taking the Trix from them. In 1985, Bugs Bunny even offered to help the rabbit score some cereal. If Bugs Bunny himself couldn't pull it off, no one could. However, his master plan pretty much consisted of putting the rabbit in another disguise, this one of Bugs, and we all know how well those have worked out in the past. Indeed, the rabbit failed yet again, and Bugs watched him from a distance with his own bowl of Trix. Yes, somehow Bugs got the cereal and didn't share. That's harsh, man. This is why I'm a Daffy Duck person. He's greedy, but at least he's open about it. Then there was one commercial where the rabbit disguised himself as an actual little rabbit, which of course didn't work. I'm not really sure what his reasoning here was. If the kids weren't going to give cereal to a cartoon rabbit, why would they give any to a real one? One last commercial from the mid-80s that stuck out to me was one where the rabbit, in sheer desperation, puts on a nonsensical disguise only for a couple of nice kids to genuinely offer him some Trix. He's skeptical, but accepts and blissfully takes a bite, only to wake up from his dream. The tip-off was that the dream was fully animated, but the commercials at the time were still largely live action. A similar commercial was done a few years later with Trixland, where all rabbits could eat Trix to their heart's content. Of course, it was too good to be true. This idea was repeated again in 2011 because the rabbit can never find solace even in his sleep. In 1988, a Western-themed commercial had the rabbit, disguised as always, about to eat some Trix when a suspicious kid asks him his name. The rabbit freezes as he, and perhaps the audience, realizes he doesn't actually have one. It's up to the kids out there to submit their own names for the rabbit. This was a fun, exciting idea. I wasn't born at the time, but I'm sure I would have tried to figure out a suitable name for the rabbit, and I'm sure many kids did and submitted their ideas. Unfortunately, the actual follow-up for the commercial simply had a messenger child hand the rabbit a scroll of paper that apparently had a name on it. Before we even find out what the name was, the rabbit lets his true identity slip, and that's the end of the commercial. It appears they never intended to give him a name, or take suggestions from the audience. Quite a few kids probably got a harsh dose of reality that day. 1991 introduced lime green to the mix, and more importantly, the puffs were changed to be fruit-shaped, much to the rabbit's delight. As I mentioned earlier, this was also the year that the last Let the Rabbit Eat Trix vote was held. In this commercial, the rabbit won a bike race, where the prize was an entire trophy full of Trix. And since the children of the real world are nicer than the ones in the commercials, the rabbit was allowed to fully enjoy his reward. In 1994, Trix yogurt hit the stores, and the rabbit finally had another obsession to chase after. Yes, it was still a Trix product, but it was nice to see him branch out a tiny bit. Of course, he didn't fare well with the yogurt either, and unlike the cereal, I don't think he's ever even had a spoonful of the yogurt. The Trix yogurt commercials emphasize the product's mix of bright colors, with most of the commercials through the years showing black and white worlds getting outrageous makeovers, thanks to the power of Trix. More recent commercials from the 2010s have focused on the CGI kids interacting with the traditionally animated rabbit, who, of course, is eternally down on his luck. A few more shapes were added in the late 90s, Wildberry Blue in 1996 and Watermelon in 1998. In 2003, the rabbit staged his greatest heist yet. Apparently, a bunch of kids are en route to a Trix convention, color me intrigued, and the rabbit robs the entire train's worth of cereal. The train is inhabited by 5 rabbits who are all suspects, which feels like unfair species profiling. One of them, the ticket taker, turns out to be the silly rabbit in disguise, somehow hiding all the Trix in his beehive wig. Continuing his escalation of thefts, the rabbit accompanied a group of kids on a safari the next year and stole their entire supply of Trix cereal and yogurt. When the kids point out he forgot to steal their spoons, the rabbit is about to fess up the hiding place, when he gets hit with a coconut, rendering all his words into gibberish. Ah, head injuries, the pinnacle of comedy. The only way to see the outcome of this little arc was on the General Mills website, and thanks to the wonder of the Wayback Machine, we can see the poorly done Flash animated finale where the hiding place is revealed. In 2007, the fruit-shaped cereal reverted back into its original puff form, most likely as a cost-cutting measure. While it didn't change the taste one bit, I can't help but admit I was kind of disappointed myself since I had grown up with the fruit shapes. The shapes would return in 2018, and I was probably more excited than someone my age should be about this kind of thing. I haven't found any commercials for Trix past 2015. I don't watch a lot of cable TV thanks to the power of internet streaming, so either they're not getting uploaded online, or they've stopped making Trix ads. I found a set of commercials from around 2015 that were called the B-Team, where the Trix Rabbit and other General Mills mascots are roommates. The commercials emulate that bright, in-your-face aesthetics and style of Adventure Time and The Amazing World of Gumball, but they lack the wit and charm of those cartoons, so they come off as obnoxiously lol so random with no other substance to back them up. If you've seen that Wendy's commercial with the memer, it's unfortunately a lot like that. One of the most recent commercials I found had the rabbit stealing the world's supply of Trix cereal and yogurt and blasting off into space. Although a group of kids are pursuing him, there's no clear resolution to the ad, so I like to think that's how the Trix saga ends. The rabbit has been deprived of a simple joy so long that he retaliates by depriving us of the same thing. Godspeed. Watching nearly 100 commercials in a row for the same product with the same outcome, of course, is different than seeing one a day. I stared into the fruity abyss and it began to stare back. I began to lose my sympathy for the rabbit, wanting for him to just cut his losses and move on. But I guess when you've devoted so much of your life to one single thing, it's hard to backtrack. It's a shame because the rabbit seems to be a multi-talented individual, and if he just dropped his cereal hang-up, he could definitely find success elsewhere. Obviously, the rabbit has always been shown to use trickery or deceit to obtain the Trix. When he's not shown straight up trying to steal it, he's trying to mooch off the kids eating it, and yeah, that's unflattering behavior. If you were to approach a stranger and ask them for a bite of their food, you'd be in the wrong there. However, the kids in the commercials are shown to be happy to share with whoever wants some of their cereal, and only refuse it when they realize they're talking to the rabbit. And the fact that one very memorable Got Milk commercial showed the rabbit using an elaborate human disguise just to buy a box of Trix suggests that he's been refused service when he's tried to get the cereal the honest way. An old promotional comic from the 60s showing him getting kicked out of the supermarket supports this theory. Basically, society drove the rabbit to steal Trix. I think we could be seeing a potential Joaquin Phoenix role here. Outside of the commercials, the Trix Rabbit appeared as a puppet in an hour-long VHS tape called The Magic Secrets Video, where he and other General Mills characters learned how to do magic tricks from professional magicians. An animatronic rabbit can be seen playing with Lucky the Leprechaun and the Honey Nut Cheerios bee at Jungle Jim's International Market in Ohio. And in 2008, 3 7-minute webtoons were produced featuring the rabbit and a new cast of characters. They're nothing special, but they got the occasional chuckle out of me, and it was nice seeing the rabbit actually succeed at something, even if it wasn't in eating his beloved cereal. While the commercials with the Trix Rabbit might eternally frustrate us, they're a brilliant bit of marketing. From his first appearance, everyone felt the rabbit's pain. This had to be some great cereal if he was so bent out of shape about it. The logic is that he might not be able to enjoy it, and there's nothing that we, the audience, can really do to help him. But we can at least take some comfort in knowing that we can eat the cereal ourselves. There are plenty of mascots who can freely enjoy their products, and yet the Trix Rabbit, despite being on the box itself, can never enjoy Trix. It's so weirdly heartbreaking. And that is why the silly rabbit, the lovable loser, the Charlie Brown of the cereal world, will always have a very special place in our hearts. We can only hope that someday he will have a literal taste of victory that will last longer than a few seconds.
All I wanted was some cereal. All I wanted was some cereal.